When will AI start working for us? Is this just a constant productivity race, or are we actually going to see this for the potential of what it is, which is we could have a life. We could be very fulfilled in a lot of ways if we use this and channel it the right way. I asked my buddy, hey, you're at an agency. Do you see this being a threat to what you do? And he said no. And I was secretly thinking like, maybe he's naive, but he brought up a really good point. If you had 10 creative directors at an agency and they're all crushing it, and then AI comes around and increases their productivity by 50%, would you get rid of them because they're being more productive?
Today on the Design Resources podcast, we are talking about AI and creativity with an incredible force in the motion design industry. Amanda Russell is the co-founder and creative director of Cream Studio, an award-winning animation studio known for its cutting-edge work. Amanda's not only an expert in craft, but she's also a thought leader, recently presenting at Adobe Max and Camp-Mograph. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Luke. I appreciate it.
Awesome to have you here. We're going to start by, I think it'd be great if you told us a little bit about Cream Studio and what really excites you about your work there.
Sure. I am one third of the co-founders and creative directors at Cream Studio. I work together with my partners, Dave Swain and Ruth Newberry Wilson, and our amazing producers, Hannah and Emily. And we have been around this is our 11th year. And we're fully remote, like a lot of studios now. We were not that way initially. And so I think what people really know about us is our diverse body of work that just stems from our curiosity and some of us have ADHD. And we like to jump around a little bit and mix up styles. And so it's a lot of fun. We usually focus on short form animation for brands and in both TV and online and experiential and pretty much anywhere with a screen. And what excites me about our work these days is the possibility of what's to come because everything's changing. And yeah, I think there's a lot. It can be scary if you want to look at it that way, but it also can be really exciting to dive into new tools and new opportunities.
We're going to get into that. That's the theme of this conversation, talking about the changes in the motion design industry. So on that theme, you've been a co-founder at Cream for 10 years and you was working in the industry before. There's been a lot of technology changes over the years, but AI feels a bit different. How do you think AI is different to the technology changes we've seen previously in the industry?
So AI is nothing like I've experienced. I don't think anyone has experienced anything quite like it. It's not. So I was watching something earlier this morning, actually, just describing what it actually is. It's not really just a tool. It's not really just an enhancement. It's not just a brain or like a thinking engine. It really is a reflection of us and a reflection of the information that's out there. And it cobbles together solutions for whatever we're asking it to do. And it's bigger than the printing press. It's bigger than fire, I think. I really feel like this is going to take us to somewhere, a place unknown. So yeah, this doesn't compare and it's going to disrupt every single industry, hands down. For better or worse, we don't really know. But I think if the more that we talk about it, the more control we'll actually have over the outcome.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you were watching this morning, but I saw a video from Mustafa Suleiman and he was a TED Talk. Is that the one that you watched?
Mhm. Yes, it was. Yeah, exactly. And it's like a zeitgeist of this tone of like what we're coming to understand this creation to be. And it's not just from Mustafa. I think that was the one I saw. He's the most recent in my mind. But it's really, what is this? How do we define it so that we can call it something that makes sense to all of us? And then it can grow into that definition so that we have the parameters of what it should do and what it shouldn't do, things that it can touch and things that we're just like, that does not align with the pillars of what we're calling this thing. And that if it falls outside of anything that we're expecting it to do, then it's deemed somewhat dangerous. And so we just leave it to the side. And that's where I think those conversations are heading.
Yeah. I don't know how familiar a lot of people listening will be with the kind of Mustafa Suleyman, and maybe not specifically this talk, but it's a little bit out there because one of the themes of the conversation is that he wants people to think of AI as a digital being. So that's probably a little bit far out there to begin with.
I love being far out there though. And I think if we can try to understand its potential as civilians, then I think we will be more empowered and just more, we'll have the tools necessary to use it the right way and to make legislation work for us instead of giving all of the power to large corporations that they can use our data against us for ads or just to replace us in every form. So it's important to know what these things are and how to define it and to be a part of that conversation. It can be so scary to learn about AI, but once you start learning about it, I think the initial fear goes away because you feel ahead. You're like, okay, got the grasp of it. I know what it can do, generally speaking. And it just makes you less afraid once you're armed with a little bit of knowledge.
Yeah. So when did AI appear on your radar? When did you start paying attention to it?
I think I started paying attention to it, probably different forms of AI. We'll say, I'll say like large language models probably help the whole paying attention thing because when you're able to talk to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using, that's a game changer. And it's really actually helped us in terms of like problem solving things with positioning or just like getting new ideas of how we want to structure our business. Or, it's not all about creative. Just because we're a creative studio doesn't mean that's our focus. We're more interested in like using it in ways that save us time, not the fun ways of creative. Like we want to use our time doing creative work. We don't want to use our time doing like businessy things. So we started paying attention probably maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And it's been quite a journey, I'm sure for everyone.
Yeah, me personally, like it appeared on my radar when Midjourney came out, and Midjourney and the language models happened at the same time. I know the language models were around a lot earlier, but they weren't as advanced and useful. So 3, 4 years is quite a long time. Like, how were you making use of them then?
We weren't making use of them then. We were paying attention to them then, knowing that we didn't know enough but knowing that it was coming. And I think slowly over time, oh, okay, this can help with script assistance. Let's say we have a script that has already been written and now we need to squeeze 10 seconds out of it because it's too long. That can be done in a matter of seconds. And then it can help us in those ways. That kind of thing could have been sent to a copywriter before, but most likely not. It probably would have fallen on whoever the creative director was or the client to make that change. And it's just such a time saver in that way. And then we can go on and on about all the different ways to use it, but I find that it can be a positive thing for artists and creatives and business owners, but they can't be afraid of it. There are ethics to work out, but it's still a useful tool right now, I think, for everyone. I'm trying to get my mom to use it, but I don't think that's going to happen.
You touched on something that I've seen. I use a lot of the thing that I use most is like the large language models. And I done kind of a couple of surveys with kind of on LinkedIn to see what people think about it. And they always like creatives, they always want to learn the sexy stuff, the image generation stuff. And like, I really want to do a course for like designers about how they can use large language models. And every time I ask, no one's interested. So I think that's actually the area that adds most value at the moment. That's where we can use it the most.
Yeah, because we can, although it would speed up creative work for sure. If you're using it for like generative AI stuff, there's not really a huge appetite for that. I don't think right now when it comes to like brands, they don't want something that looks blatantly generated. However, if you're a creative person and you hate doing business stuff, there's an AI for that. There's an everything for that. And yeah, like why not jump in, train it a little bit on what you do, your business, and then tap into it, have conversations with it so that it can help at least jog something. It's going to learn who you are and who your business is over time.
Yeah. But let's talk about that a little bit. So obviously you're co-founder of the studio and the topic of AI must come up with clients. So what are the most common concerns or questions you're hearing?
I think a lot of it is right now, it's still very unknown territory for our clients. They're afraid to use it because of the potential repercussions for licensing. Like big brands don't want to use it just yet. And so understandable. But think a lot of it is just, hey, can you guys do this faster with AI? Can you make something? Can you help us with a pitch to win a project? Can you basically they want us to jump into Midjourney or something else to create something faster for a pitch because they don't know how to do it yet. And it's different. I know we haven't done it very much, but it's not like a moneymaker or anything like that. It's more of, okay, if this leads to the project, then yes, we can make something happen. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot of movement with clients specifically requesting uh, generative art.
Yeah, I think we're still very early. I'm seeing it appear
Mhm.
more and more in kind of popular culture. Like there's some adverts. There was one from Under Armour. Um,
Oh, yeah.
but this is kind of touches on this question. If there's two points here. There's one, the kind of generative AI will speed up the ideation stage. Does that affect prices for the industry, and how are we going to deal with that? And the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is whether you mentioned pitching. So normally that would be a company comes to you and you come up with a concept and you do the star frames and the storyboard and you give them the idea. I was wondering if you'd seen a change now, because I've heard anecdotally that clients are going to agencies with an image they've made in Midjourney and going, this is what we want. Can you build on this or etc.
Yes, that has happened. That has happened. And it's not always the best way to go because it really, I think it's a new tool for them to play with, and maybe they're going to get better at it. And that will be a different form of communication. It's like visual communication through from client to studio. Here's a picture, make this. But what I've found, at least in our limited experience of that kind of situation happening, is it can be if they don't know what they're doing inside of Midjourney, if they don't have a lot of experience built, then it's just the output of whatever Midjourney gave them. But there could be more questions that we have to ask and more, I don't know, like there could be more detail or more interesting things happening in that scene that didn't really come out through a Midjourney prompt that the client initially put in.
Yeah, I think sometimes clients need educating, obviously, but there can be a misconception that like we as creatives, designers, illustrators, we make pretty images, but really it's the kind of
Well,
they can come to you with a pretty image and you go, oh, this could be a campaign, but there's no strategy.
yeah, exactly. And I think it can be even worse because Like, it's dangerous enough if someone knows enough about Midjourney to get in there and just generate something, it's dangerous enough to be misleading for what the full concept of the project is supposed to be. So, instead of getting a lot of words and a lot of conversation and trying to figure out what the essence of this thing is going to be through a creative brief and like a studio process, it's here's a picture, make this thing. Or make it this color, do it a little bit differently, make it spin around. And it's, wait a minute, we've skipped all of this and now we're just yeah. So I don't know. I feel like we'll probably be in a slump, a little bit of a creative slump for a while, figuring out the best practices of how we want to use this kind of technology and what those limitations are. But after that, I think it's really just going to be a lot of potential and a lot of work, like a lot of work for everyone because just reading about it last night and they're saying it's going to skyrocket all production or productivity for every industry, which makes perfect sense. But that's, I don't know if that's before or after the great disruption. I'm not really sure. It's so unpredictable and everything's changing so fast, so it's hard to keep up.
Yeah. This is something that concerns me, something that causes me anxiety. So there's this vast, promised increase in productivity. But the other side to that is if, especially in the creative industry, if you can create a project, an image, and a concept with, even if it has a good strategy behind it, if you can do the production work of that much quicker and it takes less people, then we need, for the creative industry to survive, we need to see a lot more work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I totally agree. And also something that I have been thinking about a lot more over time, and I know that the speed of AI is what we're having a hard time processing, and I think that's what's giving us anxiety is with everything else in the world, we have a certain amount of predictable input, and then you have time to process it, make a decision of how you feel on it, and then move on. With this, it's changing so fast. There's no time. It's just constant change. And I think that with all of this going on, we can easily say that if we look in the past, we can spot things in art or spot things in technology. Our human eye is really adaptable to change. Maybe not the speed at which we're experiencing with AI, but even now, if we look at generative art, for the most part, right now, we can say that's generative or you can just spot it barely. Think about when 3D was introduced. The same thing where you can spot little nuggets over time. And then it just gets realer and then you can't really detect it. But I think for a little while, we're going to be in a phase where people are going to have an aversion to that look and they're going to feel it or it's going to come across as being very cheap to them because it signals generative. And so that's good news for artists, but we don't know how long it's actually going to, how long that's going to stay because the time scale of the progress of AI is, yeah, it's not on a human time scale at all.
this is a thing that I don't think a lot of creatives understand, is that we've known for a long time that computer processing doubles every 2 years or whatever it is, Moore's law. So this combined with AI, it's like an exponential curve that humans don't really understand. So not only do we have the doubling of processor speed, so the AI can learn twice as quick or process data twice as quick, but you also get this improving AI that you can then use to teach the AI. So this is where the kind of exponentials come.
Oh, yeah. And then think about all of the resources being poured into more research and more advancements. And it really surpasses everything else. Yeah. It, I don't know if you can hear my dog Cookie in the background with her potty bell. Are you able to hear that at
I
all?
know we got you, unfortunately.
Thank God. Okay. She keeps hitting it. Anyway, that's just Cookie. But yeah, so I was actually talking to a friend of mine the other day. We had an interesting conversation because I've been following the WPP massive investment. Just if WPP, they're like global. They hold and own like most of the world's advertising agencies. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. If it's not number one, it's like number two. And they invested an astronomical amount of money into AI research, and they partnered with NVIDIA to create something that's going to help them with content and with research and with really everything. And I asked my buddy, "Hey, you're at an agency. Do you see this being a threat to what you do?" And he said no. And I was like, "Are you?" And I was secretly thinking, "Well, maybe he's naive." But he said no because he brought up a really good point, and I hadn't thought about this before. If you started out with 10 copywriters at an agency, or maybe not copywriters, we'll say something that's not as affected yet, 10 creative directors at an agency, and they're all crushing it in terms of productivity. And then AI comes around and increases their productivity by 50%. Would you get rid of them because they're being more productive? No, because you could cut them out and then just max out 5 or less creative directors that are in that seat and just try to match what the other 10 were doing before. But he's like, "Why wouldn't you just utilize AI to do more with the same amount of people?" So I thought, okay, that's actually a promising scenario that I want to latch onto and believe for a long time. So I'm trying to have more conversations like that with people on the outskirts of what I do in different realms of either brands or agencies, marketing, and just try to get a pulse of what they're seeing. And it's mostly positive. It's mostly positive. What are you seeing on your side of things?
So I like to think of myself as a realist. Maybe I'm negative. That's the reality. But so
I'm with you for sure.
what you described, though, yeah, sure, that makes perfect business sense. And content's a great example of this. But you need the volume of work. You need those extra clients, or they're going to be sat doing nothing off of
Mhm.
their time, which might be that's a plausible possibility for the future. I think we might all be underemployed. If productivity increases so much, we might just work half the time. That'd be fantastic.
Yes. I actually put something on LinkedIn a few months ago. Like, when will AI start working for us? When is this just a constant race, productivity race, or are we actually going to see this for the potential of what it is, which is we could have a life. We could be very fulfilled in a lot of ways if we use this and channel it the right way. And the right way, in my opinion, is focusing on what matters, like what's around us, our world, the big problems that we have in politics and media and our environment and all of that. If we took half of our work week and all contributed to just thinking about that stuff and enjoyed more family time, more friend time, what's wrong with that lifestyle? That sounds like something like a future that I want to be a part of. I don't really want to be a part of a future that just works more. That doesn't sound interesting at all to me.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's something I could get excited about.
Yeah, but who is spending the money, and who's making decisions? And I think right now it's depending on what country you live in. I'm obviously in the States, and it's a little top heavy with these large corporations that own everything and make a lot of decisions for the people and lobby for legislation change. I believe that's going to be very heavy handed once AI is fully put on the table for discussion in government. And we're going to see a lot of lobbying basically to undercut the people out of those big world changing decisions that AI has the potential to make for us.
I think it's interesting because historically the US doesn't like to regulate industries, and they have a lot of the AI companies are based there. And to counteract that, Europe does regulate things, and they've brought in some kind of regulations recently that will restrict the use of AI. Like the training data, for example, if you train an AI model, you have to declare all the data that you use to train on it and get permission. So it's great for artists because no one's ever gave their permission. So the
Mhm.
EU's they're clamping down on that, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because AI might just pull out of Europe.
Yeah.
We're not gonna You can't have it. We're taking our
And
toys.
isn't that wild? Because then, like, we're looking at paradigm shifts and world order shifts when things like that can happen. When companies are living inside of countries that are a little less, maybe they monitor less and they give more flexibility to those large companies, that's very dangerous. It's really dangerous. So again, the more we know, I don't know a whole lot. So I feel like no matter what information I consume, I still feel like I know very little about what's going on every day. But something that I saw, and I want to make a note about it stealing from artists. So I have wrestled with this for such a long time. And if you follow me on LinkedIn or like that, you'll see like some posts I'm like pro generative art and I'm tired of fighting it. And then some I'm like, wait a minute, I heard another thing and now I'm swayed. So I go back and forth. And by the way, that's okay. That's normal. Everybody should change when they have more information. But I saw something recently that just made perfect sense. If you're including any sort of name of an artist as a reference point in your prompt, then you owe that artist a commission or a licensing fee. And I thought, okay, done in a way that makes sense for everybody, where it's just a little bit of a licensing fee. Why is that difficult for us to really think is possible? That makes sense because stock companies have done that with photographers. Like that kind of fairness, I could be on board with for sure. But I still wrestle with calling it pure theft because it's, and I want to hear your opinion on it too. But like when we're saying it is theft, I can look at that piece of art and I can make the same one. I can copy it, I can scan it, I can do all of the things. It might take me longer. And so, but if I change it a little bit, then it's inspiration. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, why is it that when we do the same thing with generative art, why is it called theft? So, I don't know. Again, I'm on the fence and I can be easily swayed, like I said. So, I want to hear your point of view.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like some days I think one thing, some days I think the other. I've been obviously I think if you're writing a prompt and you put an artist name in there, that feels wrong. That feels like a job that could have gone to them. But
Mhm.
the other side of that is it's just their name. And you have all this data in a kind of vector cloud and it's pulling the result that you will get in a certain direction. But it's not their work. Like it's not the same. And like you touched on it earlier, like you can still feel like it's still a bit AI. But
Yeah.
one interesting thing would be that I heard is that so if you put two artists' name in there, like the AI is gonna mix the style of how it interpretates their style, but it's gonna create something different. And it won't be the way that a human looks at it. We can look at two art styles and go, oh, this is my inspiration. And you'd create something different to an AI looking at these styles and noticing different things and creating something different. So it's super complicated, but I like to think that I like to explore the things that AI can do that we couldn't do yesterday. What happens between these two data points, like the latent space in AI? What's the surreal kind of art that's emerging, post photography that didn't exist 1 or 2 years ago? Is these new things, and a good example would be Sora. I don't know if you've seen like the work of like Paul Trillo. Like he recently made a video for kind of TEDx, and he's developed this style. It's this infinite zoom now, and it's just a camera
Mm.
that just zooms in and goes through a different scene, and then it transitions to another scene. And I like this. It's exciting because we're alive for the birth of a new art form. We're this
Yeah.
is a new art movement that we are living through.
Yeah. And it's so much more than just art, too. It's that if it was just art, it would be huge, but it's more than art. It's everything. It's information, it's technology, it's communication, and it's research. I think for me, like some of the conversations that I've had recently brought up some interesting prompts, like ways that you can use like Claude or ChatGPT to help ask your client the right questions in a kickoff call or in an initial call with them to try to feel them out. And one of them was something like, tell me what company X, what the perception of company X is on Wall Street. And I guess the reason why that's important is because depending on how they're doing or depending on the perception of them on Wall Street right now, that client can be very fear based and can be making a lot of decisions based on, we got to do this or this. So you can ask really big questions to hone in on having better relationships with your clients and understanding their problems better. If you're not comfortable asking them those questions, then you can ask Claude or ChatGPT those questions and really start building out profiles for your clients to help you be a better partner with them. And then think about how that it can do things for your family. It can do things for you. And I'm excited. I'm cautiously optimistic, of course, because I'm aware what humans can do to things. But I think if we stay on the right track and we're really cautious about ethics, I wanted to ask you a question though, and see, I'm going to turn the tables on you a little bit. You've been seeing positive generative art come out. And what I mean by positive, I mean like a positive tone about the future, about where we're going to be in the next 10 to 50 to 100 years. Because I haven't been seeing a lot of that. And I think that's what we actually need right now is more visuals to help us see a positive future instead of just absolute corruption and robots with tentacles taking over our world.
I've Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, pop culture is like Terminator and all this, and like this dystopian, what's it called, cyberpunk, like where
Mhm.
it's a future, but we
Exactly.
regress to like old technologies. I
It's like a Ready Player One kind of vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, like I see your point. I don't know if optimism, if my personality again, sorry, if optimism's the right solution, but definitely we should have some vision of how this does work for us. And I don't know that. I haven't seen that. And it gets really complicated because if you have to, I believe you have to like accept that there's a point in the future where AI models will be more intelligent, better at reasoning. They'll just be better than the average human. And that
Mhm.
day is the day that we fall off a cliff. So, like, your studio is not gonna hire another person because a person costs you might, but right, a person economically, you wouldn't because it's just costs X amount to hire a person, but you can pay $50 a month to have this new AI that does everything better, quicker, and never sleeps, doesn't take holidays, doesn't have any HR issues, doesn't have the complexities of working with humans. And that kind of day is when the society that we built around capitalism fails.
Mhm.
And this is going to
Absolutely.
get a bit deep for most people, sorry, but
I think it's a really good, it's a real conversation because that's the same day that we don't ever get hired because why would someone hire a studio to do all of these things when they themselves, a business owner of a large brand, can have a single AI to do everything it needs. And if you want to get stuck on labor and if that's like where you think jobs are headed, yeah, probably. I think we'll be doing more manual labor, but that won't last very long because look at the technology that Amazon's creating. They are literally replacing their warehouse workforce with robots. that are powered by AI. So it's all going to reveal itself very soon. But I think that it's really important to be 50-50. But just try to be neutral as much as you can. It is big, it is scary, but panicking is probably the worst thing that we can all do because then it's just pure chaos. We all have to have a straight head about it, really get involved, start talking more and put it online. Put your thoughts online because guess what? AI sees that too and it pulls that into its result and it helps it to move us along, if you will. And maybe that's where we're headed is where like we'll just be talking all the time on the internet and AI will be there feeding us answers, just being like, chill out, I got this. But yeah, I'm so over panicking anymore. I think the pandemic just really took it out of me. I'm done with that. I just want to like figure out how to live a happy life, have my friends make money, have me make money, and everybody we're okay creating, even if it's at home, creating the work that we love. It could be a game changer and improving our lives because maybe we don't want to be really working for clients. Maybe we just want to be creating stuff for ourselves. And so just stay neutral as much as you can. It's like
Yeah,
everybody calm down.
I think
Yeah.
it's important to remind ourselves that there's two sides to the coin. So one thing we've already spoke about is maybe we'll work less. Maybe we'll work half a week and you'll still have your maybe universal basic income comes in and the government pays us all to survive and we can do whatever we want. And that's like a great future because there's a lot of things as humans, we're addicted to work. We still need purpose and all that. That's more philosophical. But wouldn't it be great to not do the shit bits of work that you don't want to do?
Yes. And I'll say this in the United States, we are obsessed with work. It's the first question we ask, which I learned that was rude in Europe, is like, what do you do? And that is when I spent more time in Europe, I realized it's not healthy to be defined by a job because when something happens to that job, who are you anymore? You've lost yourself because you put all of your time into that one thing. And really, we need to be more well rounded when it comes to just being a person. We have to understand who we are. We have to be better at acknowledging our world and experiencing our world, experiencing our family and new people and new ideas. And right now, all of our time is being siphoned into work. If that could loosen up a little bit, I feel like we would improve and be more connected because we'd have more time to actually understand each other, hopefully.
Yeah, I had another conversation last week, and one of the points that came up was like, I don't want to collaborate with an AI. I want to collaborate with humans. And from that, like the ideas that you share between two people, like you can come up with ideas. So your kind of concept is how are we going to make AI work for us? People aren't going to want to stop interacting with humans and stuff. I think probably this is maybe 10 years in the future, or maybe not that far. Who knows when we have to
Oh,
face these problems, but it's could be a lot sooner.
yeah, I feel like it's 3 to 5 years because, yeah, I'm going to say 3 to 5 years. I said last year, yeah, it was last year when the first generative, I can't remember which company put it out, but it was the Will Smith eating spaghetti
Oh yeah.
with that mortifying vision. But I remember having conversations and just saying, whatever we think it's going to be, it's going to be a whole lot less. And then, sure enough, everybody was shocked when Sora like exploded and was just like, here we go. Here's text to video. And that's happening everywhere. And it's only getting better and it's exponential. So it's going to touch everything unless legislation prevents it. But there's risk with that too, because depending on where you live, that means that your economy or government could be left behind and everyone else advances. And so it's just you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't right now.
Yeah. Cool. We've been chatting for a while now, and I imagine that you probably have to go. But let's try and end this on a kind of a more positive note or a more actionable note. So what for people or studio owners, motion designers that are feeling anxious about all this AI stuff, what advice would you give to them?
I would say if you're anxious about it, then you should learn as much as you can about it. Doesn't mean you have to use it specifically. It just means you should learn, you should know what's out there, know what's coming, know the potential and the risk. And it's going to help you to at least feel like you have your bearings on it. And our industry is one of the first to really be touched and affected by it. And that's a good thing because it's going to give us a head start to figure ourselves out before it starts making its rounds to every other industry. So try to see everything as a positive, take a breath, learn about it.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. It's better to know about these things and see where you can use it. And also, like you say, like we need this optimism, we need this positive future. And designers are perfectly placed to present that both visually and the concept behind it as well.
Absolutely. We need more visions of a positive future so that we can ascend to that. We can look forward to that instead of just assuming that whatever we see is going to happen. We've got to make what we want to happen in the future. And it starts with understanding and learning and being a part of those conversations.
Awesome. Really appreciate your time and chatting to us about these kind of complicated issues. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, looking forward to the next month of all of these changes that we're probably going to see in technology.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Amanda.
All right. Thank you. Bye.